Welcome to our traditional CEC Insight series. Today we're with Ludger Ramme, President of the CEC European Managers. And Ludger, how do you feel personally, professionally? How do you experience the crisis? We are seeing a little bit light at the end of the tunnel. What are your personal and professional impressions or experiences or wisdoms you've taken out of this crisis?
Well, Klaus, hello, and thank you for the invitation to come into this chat. And hello to all the participants and people who look at our conversation. Yes, the question: how do you feel and how do you experience the Corona crisis? It's a vast question, and I can only give you a little overview of what has happened. Actually, I was hit by the crisis in Spain on holiday. And I experienced the very sudden lock-in in Spain and the tragedy that was happening there with a huge spread of the disease. I myself was locked in for 10 days in the apartment that I had rented on the coast. And I had to make my way back to Germany. It was kind of an adventure. It took me, instead of 5 hours, it took me 20 hours. Because several flights were cancelled, and I made it finally from Barcelona to Cologne, and then I took a train. And when I reached my apartment here in Berlin, I was really, really happy to be home. And I think this is a very normal reflex of all the people. Everybody was seeing to get home and get into the situation where there's a home health system and the home rules. And that was the reflect of the nations in Europe. Throughout Europe, every nation kind of pulled back from all the promises of a united Europe. And the first reflex was to shut down the frontiers, to concentrate on the national situation, and to forget about the fact that in the daily life for the last half of a century, we have been together in Europe. And luckily, after this initial shock, people started to reflect and to come back and think that the only way to overcome this huge crisis is to resume the work together in Europe and to stay to strengthen our togetherness and the possibility to find common solutions. So we have seen in our organization two things. First of all, the back to the national way of finding solutions, and then we have started in our organization with members in 17 countries in Europe. We have established telephone conferences each week on Wednesdays at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We had all the presidents of our organizations, and we were exchanging about how is the spreading of Corona in your country? How does your government react? What is happening at the workplace? What is the reaction of the companies? And what can we do maybe together to spread information and share best practices? And so by this regular meetings, we have got quite a good overview of the real situation in the different countries, and that added, of course, to what we could read in the press. But it makes a difference if you read the headlines in the press about situations in countries. And for instance, our Italian friends, they could give us much more precise information about the tragedies that happened in the Bergamo area, but that is not all of Italy. In the south of Italy, for instance, the situation wasn't any worse than in Germany. So that was very precious information that we got firsthand, and so we all kind of appreciated this exchange and this possibility to be together. And of course, we then had the idea to issue a press release on the necessity to resume the European project as soon as possible.
Yeah, you said it very nicely, to strengthen togetherness. We also, from CEC's side, here have this because you're just today with us in this CESI Insights, and we have had many discussions with our members, also many interviews, and I've been very surprised and moved also how important this European Union, this European construct, this European Confederation of ours also is for our members. And this also, as you said, and I can only agree, it strengthened the togetherness in our organization too. That is quite surprising. Look, what is for you? What will be the impact on the labor markets, employment conditions, social protection? I mean, we know the figures. We know the figures from the IMF, from the ILO, and others about the economic impacts. But it's what do you fear the most?
Well, there are actually fears and hopes at the same time, and this is always in many challenges the case. There is dangers and fears, but there's also opportunities and possibilities, and it is the role of us, of the managers, to be optimistic and look more to the possibilities than to the dangers. Well, let me be very blunt. I mean, throughout the life that we lead, shit happens, and this Corona crisis, nobody wanted it, and it is a big tragedy. We all mourn with the families who have lost dear people, and some countries were hit more and some countries were hit less, and it was pure luck who was deciding that. It was a matter of who traveled from Asia to Europe and which airport did he land, and this is how this disease has spread it. And the reaction of all the countries was the shutdown. It was, I think, the right thing to do. But now we are entering a phase where the first wave of the pandemic is past, and we don't know if there will be a second wave. It's a good possibility. And from the facts, really nothing has changed. It's still a disease that's very contagious. There is no remedy, no medicaments, and there is no vaccination. So it's only the question of social distancing and precaution that keeps us from the second wave. And as we know, it's a human nature. We are doomed to be together, to have social contact, to touch each other, to mingle, and so this will happen somewhere. And the only question that we don't know is how big will the impact be of a possible second wave. So this is the one point. So we have to be brave and just live with this truth. And then I will come to your question. What is the effect on labor markets? And the labor markets and the way of working, if I may also include this in my answer, the labor markets will suffer, and they are already suffering. But with our general social European systems, some are better than others. I don't want to go into details, but in fact, we are trying to ease the effects on the labor situation. We will try to avoid as much unemployment as possible, and those who fall into unemployment can be sure that they are being assisted and supported by our social welfare. And this is just fair. And this is the principle of the social market economy, the market combined with social responsibility. Nevertheless, figures say that in the European Union zone, we will have a cut back of our economic performance by at least 9% in the coming months and the next year. And we have to face it. And we can see, if we look around in our neighborhoods, mostly and severely hit are the people who do the services, in the services sector. Because the restaurants had to close down. There is no, you cannot go to fitness clubs, you cannot go to cinemas for a long time, theaters are closed, the cultural life has come to a still stand. So we will have parts of the labor markets which are badly hit, and this is why the governments need to find solutions to help them, and we all will have to pay for that, that's for sure. So the possibility of the yes, maybe the wish that the corona crisis might go away and at no cost for the individual, this is not the truth. The truth will be that for the next decades, we all will have to pay for this, what is happening now. And the task for the governments and also for the European Union will be to level and balance the losses of the individual groups. So those groups who will lose, they will they must have our solidarity. And I say that nevertheless, we will all have to pay. This is not a reason to be pessimistic. I think we should concentrate on the possibilities and the learnings that we are getting through the corona crisis. Let me give you an example. We are talking through online meeting, through online device. And I'm coming from an age of the analog age. I'm not a digital person, but I was forced through Corona crisis to get familiar and used to video conferencing. And I love it. I think it's so good, it's so effective, it's so efficient that even if the Corona crisis would stop right away, I would keep it up, and I will reduce my trips to Brussels by at least 50%, if not 70%, because I find out that all the daily stuff you can really solve with a video conference. But at the same time, I know that personal relations are important. And Klaus, I'm looking forward to our next dinner or maybe a lunch that we will have to stay in contact and to keep our individual relationship up, and that is the pure reason to travel in the future on a business level.
I agree. Also, for us, a lot will change, but especially since when you look back, I mean, when you just think a couple of months back, it seems like another history, another life, another planet. It was very interesting. I was thinking, if you look at the mails you have been sending until February, the emails you have received until February, and how many physical mobility, physical movement there was implied in all this. This will definitely also change. You also spoke about learning, Ludger. The CEC just published a study on leadership in times of Corona. What can managers learn from this crisis for the future?
Very good question. Let me come back to my introduction, where I said that our reaction was to meet up on digital devices and exchange information as soon as possible. And there we convened that we said, let's gather all this information and put it into a report, not in order not to keep this information only to the head people of our organization, but to share it with all our members in all the countries. So that was the reason why we published very quickly this Corona report. And if you read it, you see a lot of actual information about the state of the crisis. But this is not the only intention that we had with this report. We also wanted to highlight the role of the manager in overcoming this crisis. As you know, and you know us for a long time, CEC is always advocating the fact that managers have a dual function. They are employees and they are defending workers' rights, but at the same time they are undertakers of economic activity. So they are very close to the company owners, because they are often replacing functions of a company owner. So we have this dual function in our genetics. And when there is times of crisis, it's usually the managers who are the first being asked from the company owners, so what are we going to do now? And could you make the company work again? Can you open the production line? So we are the people who have to convince our co-workers to be positive, to be optimistic, and to start that what is possible, and to give this to assure our members about this role, and that they can also find some, well, maybe some assurance of their own positions, because of course some of the managers are deeply hit by the corona crisis. They are fearing for their jobs as well, and they don't know, so what will become of me? They have a lot of questions. So by giving them information and the assurance that we are sticking to our role as managers, we would also support them personally. This is the intention of the report.
Ludger, you said it very nicely that we have to remain positive. You spoke about solidarity. You spoke about togetherness. A final message why to the CESI community, and why you believe trade unions are particularly needed in these difficult moments.
Well, I completely agree with this statement. All sorts of unions, and you know that we are advocating strongly the diversity in the union movement. We are not thinking about just one union or just one umbrella organization. We like the diversity of the different unions. And also in the corona crisis, this diversity is highly important because the impact of the crisis is so different in the different fields of activities of work. So we are really thinking that we all are needed now. It's very simple. In this crisis, the company owners, the employers, they are under a lot of pressure. They have a lot of responsibility on their shoulders. And of course, they will try to seek easy solutions. And they will, of course, have the perspective of the employer. And it's not mean, but it's just natural to forget maybe sometimes the interest of the workers and the employees. And this is what we are there for as unions. We have to underline the perspective of the workers and the worries they have, and the social and economical needs. And we have to make it transparent to the employer side. We have to explain to the employers why we have to find joint solutions where there is no one winner and losers, but where we are all winners. And never before, I think, the role of the union has been so important as today in times of crisis.
Ludger, thank you very much. Stay safe. All the best to you and to
the CEC. Thank you, Klaus. All the best to you, and bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. Goodbye, Ludger.